To give a better sense of urgency, let's add a blood screen to indicate our health levels. This is especially good if you don't have this UI in the bottom left like I was talking about earlier. It might be a good idea to leave it out. A blood screen is a great way to let your player know that they need help. So I've created a blood texture, which you should replace with your own, just really quickly in GIMP. And we can import that now. So let's go into textures and import, and once you find where you've downloaded it, just click it and hit open. Now we need to make this blood screen here a material so we can alter the intensity of it coming into the screen. So let's go into content, materials, and we're just going to create a new material. So right click, material. We're going to call this M blood screen and open it up. Now this material, we need it of type post-process because we're going to be adding it to something that the camera processes. So in material domain, if you have this selected, in material domain, change this to post-process right here. So it changes it from a surface type to post-process. And you can see we now only have one input right here, and that's the emissive color. So what we need first is right-click, scene texture, and we want this scene texture, the ID, to be of type post-process input 0. We need to take the color here. We need to mask it, so we'll search mask. We want this component mask right here. It's going to be right above the one that's automatically highlighted. And over here on the left, we want R, G, and B all to be selected rather than just R and G. And we need to lerp this. So search lerp and choose linear interpolate. And out of the B, this is going to be our blood texture. So let's hold down the letter T and click. This will create a texture sample, or you can just right click and search texture sample. This one right here. And the texture we want is this blood texture we just imported. So just search for blood screen border. And we need to multiply it by an amount. We need to let it know how much on the screen it should be, if that makes sense. So for testing purposes, we are just going to use a constant. So let's hold down 1 and click. If you hold down the 1 key and click, it creates a constant, or you can just search for constant, the one at the top. And we want this number to kind of affect the entire radial gradient. So we want it to come in from all different sides, kind of like a circle. And we luckily there's a node for this called the radial gradient exponential. And this number will act as our radius. So we can just plug that into radius. Now we also need a density. So let's hold down 1 and click again. And this number will be our density. Now we want to be able to adjust both these numbers in any material instances we create. So let's just right click on this and convert to parameter. And we can now name it. I'm going to call this one density. This makes it so if we make a material instance, this is now something we can adjust in that instance of the material. This allows us to create multiple materials and slightly alter things how we like in separate instances. I'm going to make the default value of this 10, not 0. And I'm going to make the default amount of the radius 1. And we want this to be a parameter as well, though we will be switching this out for something later. But this is just to do some tests. So we'll just call this amount for now. I guess we could have called it radius. It doesn't really matter. Now we need to multiply these two together. So out of the RGB, we can get a multiply node. And for the B, we want this, except for the fact that this is currently inverted. This will be creating a circle on the inside and expanding it outwards, while we need everything on the out to be our texture expanding inwards. So we do this with a 1 minus node, and then we can just plug that into the B. Now this multiply will go into the B of the lerp, and for the alpha, that'll also just be this number right here. Let's create a reroute to make this easier, and this is our result. You can save and it'll apply automatically. And what we need to do is take this blood screen, right click, and we're going to create a material instance. And we could just leave it as blood screen inst, and I'll show you now that we can check amount and density, and we can change these numbers accordingly. In order to see this, let's just add it to our level, which will be viewable with our camera. And we just need to find our post process, which I put over here. If you don't know where it is, you can just search for it in our world outliner. And we need to add it, if we search for post process, we need to add it to our post process materials. So we have this array, it has no elements, so we have to add one. We can choose between these two. We want an asset reference, and the asset we're referencing is this blood screen inst. So we pull it in, and we don't see anything yet. We hit play, we don't see anything. But if we go into the inst and we adjust some of these values, let's make the amount 0.5. You can see it's starting to come in. If it's 0, it comes in all the way, but you can see that's an issue right there with the black in the middle. We'll just change this to 0.5, and let's make the density something like 5. The density will change kind of how smooth this edge here is. See, if you make it 100, it's very sharp. If you make it 0, you don't want 0 because that just won't work at all. 5 is a good number for me. And you'll see the same thing if we go into our world and we hit play. We now have this kind of blood that comes in from the left and right. When I created the blood texture, I made it quite packed around the edges. We can see in the textures, it's really red around all these edges. So if you want something lighter, just like blood splotches, you make sure to keep that in mind when you're making your own assets. Just have kind of splotches here and there. Now we need to be able to change this amount variable in our blueprints, and we can't really do that with just a parameter right here. So instead, we're going to have to make something called a material parameter collection. So let's go into content and materials. We'll just put it in here. I'm going to right click, and it's under materials and textures, and we need this materials and textures, material parameter collection. And we'll call it MPC, material parameter collection, blood screen. We can open this up, and this, we can ignore this vector parameters here, but these scalar parameters, these will give us adjustable numbers if we add one and open it up. Basically, in the exact same way, we have these parameters right here. These are also called scalar parameters, by the way, when they're numbers. When they're just the one number, I mean. So it's essentially the same thing in here. So we can also name it. We'll just call it amount as well, and we can give it a default value of 1. Same thing as this one. And we just need to switch these out. So we can go into blood screen, delete this amount right here, right click and search for parameter collection parameter. It chose MPC blood screen for us by default, but if it's not there, you just open this up and you click on MPC blood screen, and we can choose the parameter that we want to use. We have amount here. If we were to add more, it would give us more options. So if we were to add another one, leave it as scalar, we can now see. Now we have to compile these all, of course. Well, maybe I have to refresh it. Just delete it and create it again. Parameter collection parameter. There we go. Now we have both. It's a little too much hassle just for that example, but it's fine. We just can delete this one now by clicking on this little arrow and hitting delete. So we'll choose amount, and we will plug this into the radius, and it's essentially doing the exact same thing. You'll see our ints now only has our density, which we can change to your will, and this amount, it can now be controlled from the blueprints the way we want it to. And we want to do that in our BPC health. So we'll go into content, sorry about that. We'll go into content, blueprints, components, and BPC health. And we'll just make this with the function. We'll call it update blood screen. And in here, we will set scalar parameter value. So the value we need to set obviously is from the amount, but it needs to know what collection it's from. So we can just choose the NPC blood screen collection right there. Now it gives us this option to choose amount. We'll choose that. And now we can adjust the value right here. That's how we adjust our value between 1 and 0, or whatever you'd like to have. I'm going to do it between 0.5 and 1 as... Oh, well, right, we can't see it anymore, but 0.5 was the maximum intensity I would like to have. So it'll be between 0.5 and 1 for me. And we'll do this with a map range. And we want it clamped. I explained this a couple episodes back, so I'm not going to spend too much time explaining it again. But the value will be our current health. And for in range and A and B, we want minimum health and maximum health. And then the out range will be 0.5 and 1. So 0.5 is connected to minimum, so if we're at 0 health, it's at full intensity. Maximum health, it's at 1, which is no intensity. Now in add health and remove health, we just need to add in the update blood screen at the end. So after add health and after remove health. And we also want to add it to the begin play, just in case you want to start out with not full health, which we are doing right now, which I mainly just do for debugging, but in most games I think you would want to start with full health. So we can hit play, and we'll see since we're at 75% health, we kind of have this red circle outline around the very edges, a little hard to see, but if we slowly start to take more health off, you can see it is starting to deplete. So just like that. Now if you don't want the blood to start showing up until we're at a certain percent, say you want no blood on the screen until we're at 70%. So let me hit it once, we're at 73. We've added a little blood on the edges, it's pretty faint, but say you don't want it to start at all until you hit 70%. The way you would do that is going into BPC health, update blood screen, and you just need to get the max health multiplied by the number you want, the percent you want. So if we get our max health, get a float times float, put it in the in range B. You just want to make this number the percent you want it to start at. So if you want it only to start at 70%, you multiply it by 0.7. And that'll work. Except one more thing, if you remember our min health here, if you want to adjust this to be something other than 0, this will once again mess up your percentage. And the way around this is taking our max health, subtracting our min health, and then multiplying it by that number. So we're going to do that just in case we ever want to mess with our minimum health number. This will reset the percent, and it will be correct no matter what these max or min health values are. So now if we hit play, I'm going to hit 2. Oh wait, I just realized that we don't start with full health. Let's start with full health first. So let's go into our BPC health, current health, and let's make this 100 to start off with as a default. So we hit play. We have, if you look on the bottom left, we're at full health. We have no blood on our screen. If I hit the number 2, which is going to take off 27, we're at 73, and we still have no blood on the screen. Once I hit 2 again, the blood has now started. We're at about 48 health, if I remember correctly, and we have this faint blood as an outline. around our screen. We do it again, and it doubles in intensity. And that's how you add a blood screen for your game.